This is Professional Launch with Ricot Aladin, positively connecting the less connected, bridging gaps, and building futures in the community. Professional Launch with Ricot Aladin.
Hello, professionals. My name is Ricot Aladin, and I am the founder and the host of the Professional Launch Show on your WDOY. Thank you so much for joining me today. And my guest is Major General Michael Haugen.
Yes.
Thank you, sir, for being on the show today. I know we have tried a few times, but
Yes, we have.
we finally got you here. So thank you for joining me today.
And it's Major General retired.
Oh, okay. Yes, indeed. All right. So, let's get into it. General, can you take us back to 1967? What inspired you to enlist in North Dakota Air National Guard?
Well, I was going to college in Valley City, and I had an extreme interest in flying, and I wanted to end up as a pilot, in the military pilot, as well as a civilian pilot. And the best way to get a pilot training slot in the Air Force through the Air National Guard was if you enlisted and were in the Guard already. And so I enlisted, became a maintenance person in working on the flight line, working on aircraft, and finished college, and then was selected to go to pilot training.
Mm-hmm. So what was your first leadership experience? What was your first leadership experience, and how did that shape your approach moving forward?
Well, I ended up doing civilian pilot training, paying for it on my own.
Ooh.
So that beginning of that, I learned from my flight instructor what it was like to fly airplanes and not know exactly what you're doing. And so each flight instructor, their job is to let you go as far as they dare, and then correcting and changing. And so I learned early in my flying career that you aren't going to start off knowing everything and doing everything perfect. You're going to make mistakes. But that civilian flight instructor was there to keep me from killing myself. And later, when I became a flight instructor and went through flight school in the Air Force, it was the same sort of mentality that I'm going to let you go as far as I dare, then I'm going to take over and show you the correct way. And so they let you experiment and see how you can do this, and thank goodness they're there to save you when you do something stupid.
And I think that we can associate that to pretty much everything, because when you start something for the first time, you are going to make mistakes, and you're not going to get everything when you first started. And I think that
absolutely,
can apply in pretty much everything.
It applies to work in many different environments. It applies to family life. It applies to so many different things.
Wonderful. So you've flown over 11,000 hours in a variety of aircraft. So what lessons in discipline and focus from aviation translated to team leadership?
Well, I think if you look at the difference between, because I flew commercially for Frontier Airlines, the original Frontier Airlines, and if you look at the military, you obviously have some of the same requirements and end games, and that is to have a safe flight and to come home and bring your passengers home. And although in the military, you're usually out there trying to shoot someone else down, intercept them, find out who they are. And obviously in the airline world, you're just looking at having a safe journey.
Yeah, so you're right. I'd rather get to where I'm going and lost my suitcases, but
right.
I can get to where
well,
I'm going.
the pilots have nothing to do with the suitcases.
No, I'm talking about the commercial airlines.
Oh, yeah,
So definitely. And, you have been a leader of many people. So, what leadership qualities do you think uh, somewhat non-negotiable for someone who are in command?
Okay, well, there used to be a saying in the military. Well, you got to treat everybody the same.
Mhm.
And what I have found through my college work and psychology and some leadership development courses that we took, not necessarily militarily, but on a civilian side, that if you treat everyone the same, you're probably treating about half of them wrong.
Oh my goodness! Please,
Yeah.
General, repeat that, please.
Yes,
Repeat that.
if you're treating everyone the same, you're probably treating about half of them wrong. And here's why. Not everybody thinks the same and processes information the same. So what you need to do as a leader, manager, and if you want to be a great one, not just average, you need to learn how other people that are under you or working for you think. And so one of the things we did on our military side
Mhm.
is we offered a civilian course basically where we said we're going to do this leadership development thing, and we're going to use the Myers-Briggs typology,
Mhm.
and so that enabled us to hear everybody's story, and everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
And you may think you know the story, but I'll bet you, and like I mentioned, half the cases you don't know
Mhm.
what got that person to sitting in front of you, talking to you. So those things are really important in leadership.
Mm.
And let me just give you one little example. When I went to work for the airline, the airline was a compilation of 3 airlines that had been melded together, owned by a family. It was privately owned, and they were losing money. And they also owned a jet engine manufacturer out in San Diego, and they had a great president of that company. They brought him in to the airline into Denver, and he walked around there for about 3 days in the giant hangar complex administrative area, and he held his first board meeting. And when he held his first board meeting, he came in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and this story is legendary with the airline. He came into the board meeting, and he's got all these vice presidents sitting around the table. He piles down a giant set of ledgers and reports about the airline, and he says to this board meeting, "Hello, my name is Al Feldman. I'm your new president." and he said, "I know nothing about running an airline, and from the looks of it, neither do any of you."
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. and he turned that company around because of his dynamic leadership and his ability. We earned 48 quarters in a row increased profits over the previous quarter. That's 12 years of continuous increase in profits. And when he would meet you, he'd remember who you were. We had 6,000 employees. I met him flying him to Kansas City one day. I saw him 6 months later walking down the concourse. He looked at me and he waved and he said, "Hi, Mike." And I go, wow. He remembered me from meeting me one time. When we had employee newsletters, he would say, "You employees are doing a great job. We're making money. We're doing great. We got to continue this." It was always encouragement. If there were problems, he would fix them. And he left. He got hired away. And 6 months after he left, our comptroller took over, and we were losing money again.
Oh boy.
And the gist of the newsletter was, you darn employees are costing us too much. We got to cut, cut, you know. And I looked at that lesson and thought encouragement and praising people
Mm-hmm.
and fixing their problems is the answer. That's leadership.
Wonderful, wonderful. Oh my goodness. Um, we're gonna take a short break here. When we come back, we'll ask the general if he ever had a mentor or what role a mentor played in his career, and does he does he mentor all others? So we're gonna take a short break. We'll be right back. We are back today. We have retired General Mike Haugen with us here in the studio for a professional launch. And just before the break, I was thinking about this. As you know, this show is about helping young professionals who are launching their careers to make better career choices, to learn, from people like you who have been in leadership roles in their professional journey. And so, a big part of our work is creating a mentoring platform so that early career professionals can learn from experienced mentors. And so, my question to you is, what role did mentors play in your career, if you had mentors, and how do you mentor others?
Well, yes, we in my flying career, when I started with the Air Guard and the military flying, I had several mentors, commanders who were exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
And I would try and emulate the things that I thought they were very exceptional at. So I had many who would look at, and for instance, in the military, whether it was a maintenance individual following a tech order procedure for fixing an airplane, or something with flying that was a rule regulation, we would look at those and we wouldn't just always accept them as, oh, that's the best way. We liked innovation. We liked to think, is there a way we can do this better, cheaper, faster, with better results? And the Air Force and the Air Guard were exceptional at doing that, much more so than let's say the Army, because there's differences between the Army and the Air Force. The Air Force is a lot more individualistic, and the officers are doing the flying. In the Army, you have a large group of enlisted personnel led by officers and senior NCOs, and they just have their nature of their war fighting is entirely unique to them, as is the Air Force unique to them. Mm-hmm. And so we have a little bit easier opportunity in the Air Guard and in the Air Force to find a quicker, better way of doing something. In air-to-air combat, it's all about geometry, and that is when you're fighting another aircraft. And I can't talk about this without using my hands because I'm a fighter pilot. But when you're doing air-to-air combat, the dynamics are always changing, and you don't want to end up at a point behind the airplane. Now you want to end up there in 20 to 30 seconds. So you are planning for where that airplane's going, and then where do I need to go? Mm-hmm. And it is dynamic. So when an airplane reverses on you, you have to figure out where are you going to go. Mm-hmm. And it's the same with whatever project you're in. Mm-hmm. If it's dynamic, if you're innovative, if you're looking at how do I make this better, then that is what I think good leadership is about. Mm-hmm. It's about innovation and being able to always want to do it better.
Mm-hmm. Mm, wonderful. And as a leader, you commended over 45 100 Guard members.
Yes.
How did you effectively lead at that scale?
Well, first of all, I tried to go out and meet as many of the 4,500 as possible.
Okay.
So around the state, when I was in office, we had 26 locations, and I would try and visit one of those on every guard drill they were having. So at 26 locations, I had to spend almost every weekend. I tried to take one weekend a month off, and I wasn't always successful. But I would go out and meet them, and it was a way to see exactly what they were doing, and they were all very proud of the mission they were doing and what they were doing for the state, for the nation, and that resulted, I think, in people trusting me. So when I would get some sort of directive out of Washington and cuts in budgets or whatever, they would go, well, we think the general's got our back. So, we're going to have to trust him on this one, even though it may not have been good. And then that really helped when 9/11 hit and we had so many people mobilized, and we were in Iraq and Afghanistan and doing war fighting over there. And then the Air Guard went through a big change when our F-16s were withdrawn from us by the Air Force. They actually had some cracks starting to happen in the tails, and the mission set we were in, they wanted us out of the air defense world because we were in the middle of the continent instead of on the fringe, on the seaport area. And so I was able to really change the Air Guard to a whole new mission. And of course, there were some who still wanted to fly airplanes. Well, they're still flying airplanes, but they're flying them from a computer desk and a system that you actually fly them via satellite. And so they have embraced the new mission. They've been at it now for 18 years, at war, somewhere in the world, every day, 24 hours a day. Now let me repeat that. 18 years straight in Fargo, flying missions somewhere in the world, every day, 24 hours a day. And they're really good at it. And the reason they're so good is because they embrace innovation and new things.
So I'm curious, when you are, whether it's you're in National Guard or the Army per se, what do you do when you notice morale is slipping? How do you keep up with their morale?
Well, it starts with the adjutant general, but we have a pretty good staff, large staff, officers and senior enlisted personnel. And if you find what's the core issue, is somebody worried that this unit is going to be relocated, or we have ways of helping with some of those things. Family issues. We have a group called Family Support, and Family Support. It's the Guard around North Dakota is, we say it's a three-legged stool. You have the soldier or the airman, and then you have the family, wife, kids, and you have the employer. Because when we mobilize a guardsman and they go off for 9 months of active duty, it's not just the family that misses him. The employer has to figure out how do I keep his job open for him to return, but yet I've still got to do the job.
It's even though we're talking about the military, when we're talking about till building, that goes for a business,
Yeah.
it goes for organization. And so, what is the key to maintain, I don't know, unity and effectiveness during long-term operations? You maintain 18 years, people are going to different places of the world 24/7 a day, 24/7. And so, what do you think is the key to maintain that unity of effect and effectiveness?
Well, I think in the military side,
Uh-huh.
one of the things is you emphasize what the mission does, what it does for the country,
Mm-hmm.
what it's doing to provide safety and security for your family,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's translates a little bit to the business world as well,
Yeah.
because what you're doing in business translates to safety and security for your family.
Yeah.
So you can relate to both of them,
Mm.
both militarily and business wise.
Hmm. So when you look back now, what are you most proud of in your military service?
Well, I would say the innovation piece of whatever we were doing, I tried to reward people for not just following directions,
Mm-hmm.
because pretty much anybody can do that.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to reward is if you're better than what the direction calls for. If you've got a way of doing something better, cheaper, smarter, faster, I really want to reward you for that. And let me just give you another example here. We flew in with our F-16s in William Tell,
Mm-hmm.
which was an air-to-air combat gunnery live fire exercise down in Florida. And we were invited by the Air Force to participate. We were flying the oldest airplanes. We had the oldest pilots. And I got a copy of the rules a couple months before we went down there. And I looked at the Air Force's rules, and they were written specifically to make sure we didn't win. So the airplane had the smallest radar, and physics was the limitation here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I gathered up our pilots that were going to fly in it, and I said, okay, here's the rules. The rules are written to allow these other units to win, because every capability they had that's better than ours was emphasized in the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what we're going to do. We're all going to go down to the factory in Fort Worth, Texas, and we're going to spend 3 days with the engineers who built this airplane.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to find out, and we're going to show them what the rules are, and we're going to say, what would you do to improve our chances? And we spent 3 days down there. We got some really good secrets on tweaking the radars and doing some stuff. and when we ended up flying against these other airplanes, and we started to call out our contact ranges and where we had them and all that, I was in the radar room listening, and they said, well, that's impossible. Those airplanes can't do that. And we went, oh, yeah, we can. Because we used innovation. We went down to figure this out with the guys who designed it and built it.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. On that note, we're going to take another short break here. When we come back, we'll continue with the conversation. We'll be right back. We are back. We have with us today the great General Michael Haugen, the retired Major General Michael Haugen here. And we're talking about, his professional journey. And, sir, as I was saying during break, you have lived a very great life. You have served your country. You have led many people, and you have received numerous awards for your service and for what you do. So how do you view personal recognition versus team recognition achievements?
Well, teamwork is often used in business as well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I go back to innovation, motivating people, and this isn't to say that results need to be overlooked, because I mean, in the business world, results are cash. That's money. That's what keeps your company afloat.
Yes.
And so in whether it was in the military or whether I was flying with the airline, which I did at the same time, by the way, the results are very important. But I also saw results with our leadership that we had in the airline industry. I saw good and bad results, and our president had good results for many years, and then we lost that president, and we immediately shifted to bad results. And so it made a huge impression on me as to what is it that makes one individual have a great business acumen, leadership with the employees. He had 6,000 employees there, and everybody just loved him. And he knew people and was very, outgoing and great. And that type of individual I see in the business world is the one who creates companies and is profitable. And yeah, it's not easy sometimes, and it's time consuming because you have to interview people, and I don't mean conduct a job interview. I mean be with them, find out who they are, what their interests are, and take a personal interest in them, and that will pay off for you. You will see results. And that's what you're really after, is results.
Yeah. Wonderful. So, what would you say was your most challenging leadership moment, and what did you learn from it?
I would say the most challenging thing was when we were faced with the Base Realignment and Closure Commission meeting, and we were on the chopping block. A lot of bases were, including Grand Forks here in North Dakota. The Air Guard was going to be shrunk from about 1,200 people down to 300, so that was extremely challenging. And I worked in the Pentagon with the Future Plans and Programs Office, trying to find mission set for this unit, and not only that, but Grand Forks. And we were extremely successful in doing the UAS mission, the Unmanned Aerial Systems mission, in both Grand Forks and Fargo, and saved both bases. And actually, they have progressed into an enormous powerhouse in that arena, in cooperation with UND and the Air Base and the airspace we have, Camp Grafton. Just a lot of good things came about from that, but it wasn't without a lot of pain and trying to figure out, how are we going to survive? How are we going to do this? So it was probably the biggest challenge I was ever faced with, and I would say one of the most successful outcomes we could have imagined.
Wow.
So it worked great. If you look at what's going on Grand Forks Air Force Base right now, there's two big companies up there, General Atomic, Northrop Grumman. You look at they're flying the RQ-4. They're doing the Reaper mission with the Customs Border Protection, and we're doing a lot of stuff all around the nation. Actually, the Air Guard, I was set in on a conference call this morning, and they're currently in every continent in the world today as you and I sit here, except for Antarctica and South America. They have people deployed and are flying airplanes everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So you are a pretty successful leader with a lot of people under your leadership for a long time. What does a successful leader look like in today's world compared to when you were starting out?
Well, I don't know that they're much different. If the things that I have just brought up here about innovation, about knowing your people, about what you need to do to be a successful leader, and there's ways of doing it. I mean, look at the Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce has a great leadership program, and the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber is extraordinarily successful. And I think for any young person going into the business world, you need to be in the Chamber of Commerce and developing relationships.
Yeah, I was, lucky enough to be part of that a couple of years back. So, which is, I have nothing but good things to say about the program, and I encourage young leaders who are starting out, even who just finish college or whatever the case may be, to see if you can get into that because it's great connections, great for connections. I get to meet a lot of people during that program, so which is really always a plus when you get to meet other people with similar or different mind, different goals than you have. So, as I mentioned before, this show is about helping those who are just starting out, young professionals. What advice would you give to a young professional stepping into their first leadership role?
I would say listen about 3 times more than you talk.
I usually hear you say you have one mouth, 2 ears. You listen.
Yeah.
But yes.
No, and again, I say that because you need to understand who the people are that are working for you, and if you look as though you care about them, you understand them, then they will become more willing to do what you need them to do and what the company needs them to do.
Okay, so we're going to take another short break here, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the legacy of the general. We'll talk about what you want your legacy to be. We'll be right back. We are back with the retired General Mike Haugen here right now. So you were just on the break. We were talking about education. You wanted to add something. Go ahead, General.
Well, I was just going to say that, in the military, we are required throughout our career to take established courses. And you cannot end up with a 20-year career without taking at least 4, and some of them are quite long, a year-long courses. And so just because you get a bachelor's degree and you go, okay, I'm done with school, no. No, you must continue to educate yourself. The military requires it, and for good reason. The level of education you get and the leadership you get out of those courses is always stressed in the military. And I was fortunate enough that I got selected to go to what's called the United States State Department Senior Seminar or Ambassador Training School. So I went to Washington, D.C. for a year and was attached to the State Department, and many of my classmates who were in the State Department became ambassadors.
Oh.
And so I was able to go to class. There was only 30 of us in the class, and 15 of them were from the State Department, and half of them, 8 of them, became ambassadors for the United States. And I was able to see other branches of government because we had USAID, FBI, NSA, Secret Service. We had several other branches that made up this class. And I could see the results of good agencies and bureaucratic baloney. and so my education there was reinforced about the military is doing things right. I had an Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine in there as well. And so I just want to say to young people, just because you have a bachelor's degree, that doesn't end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned the military, but I think that it can be applied to almost everything. You don't just stop after the period you take the training. I mean, you have, because things change, technology, everything
absolutely
is changing. You get a degree in whatever the field is, you have to continue to grow, and I think that's a very, very good advice. And so we have about 3 minutes left for the show. I have 2 questions. We're gonna try to make it fit, okay? So what is one book, one quote, or a principle that has stayed with you throughout your career?
Oh my! I'll tell you what. I think it's hard to pick one.
Okay, give me 2 short ones.
Well, no, because like I just mentioned, there are so much in the education. I've had to read several of them, but one of the things that I think right now I like is Dave Ramsey talks about your income and expenditures and not getting yourself in debt. That can lead to some really disasters. So Dave Ramsey is a good one on how do you not become a ward of the state, because you've lost everything. And I use that as kind of a pejorative term, but it's and then there's so many other leadership things. But if you really want to look at human history, there's only one book that gives you all the good and all the bad, and that's the Bible.
The Bible, yes. And when you read the Bible, you read 67 books. So you don't just read one book. It's a book, but
Absolutely.
it has many books, and you can claim you read many more. And so the last question for the show, and we only have about 2 minutes left. What legacy do you hope your leadership leaves behind for North Dakota, for your team, for those who maybe perhaps following in your footsteps?
Oh my. Playing Stump the General here. I guess I would say that I want to be remembered as someone who really cared about the troops, who was worried about them, and I went through some tough times with families who lost members in the war zones, and other accidents. And I just there's nothing like brings a family together like attending a funeral and saying we're still going to take care of you. We still want to see you. You're still part of our group here.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So, well, General, this is our final minutes on the show here. I want to thank you so much for being on our show today and sharing some valuable lessons that you have learned over the many years that you have served the country, and then you have led as many people, thousands of people. And I think the young professionals who are watching this can take a lot from this conversation. I thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Rico.
Wonderful.
Appreciate the invite.
Wonderful. As you know, Professional Lounge is a nonprofit organization. We rely on friends, on guests, on partners to support our operation. Be our friends. Find us on social media and support us, and also reach out and see how you can be a friend of our organization. We appreciate your support, your donation, and everything that you do for the show to keep it going. So, um, at the end of the show, usually I have something to say that surprise everybody, but I always wish everybody to have a good day. And this is how I say it. Now, this is your time to have, and I mess it up. Oh my goodness. Now, it's the time to tell you to have a great day. Make today a great day.